specific outcomes you expect from the school district if you are elected. Mr. Sebree.
What are 2 or 3 outcomes of the school district
That you expect from the school district if you are elected?
Well, I can't honestly look you in the eye and tell you that just because I would be elected that these are outcomes that would naturally happen. But in preparation for running, I have spent time talking to people that serve on school boards, past school board members, administrators, teachers, and parents. And it does seem to me that there are 3 overriding issues here with the school district right now. First of which is we need a new superintendent. And I'm going to borrow a phrase from Charlie Herman. We need an all-American type superintendent for our school district. Items 2 and 3 are going to be more systemic and they're going to be more long-term. And the first of which is going to be the budget. I'm in the financial services profession and I'm a voracious reader of what's going on economically. And by all appearances, we are facing some, what would appear to be decreasing funding that we can't expect from the state. The third item that I think is going to be a big issue for us as a school district is going to be the facilities.
Thank you. Mr. Bill Wall. Oh, same question. Same question.
Oh, well, it's, I think Mark gave some pretty good answers to that. The school superintendent role is an important one, making sure that we have somebody who has leadership and vision for the future, not just maintain the status quo is very important. Managing our budget is very important. Dealing with the demographic shifts we have in the school system is real important. There is a difference in achievement apparently between different groups within the school system. We need to do what we can to maintain the current high levels of those who are achieving well and close the gap by bringing the underachievers up. It's so important that we give our children the opportunity to succeed. Without a good quality education, we cannot do that. They cannot do that. We can't just have them do the ABCs and go out into the world. They need to have additional skills and abilities and a good grounding to be able to be successful in whatever careers they have.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Mr. K.J. Wall, same question.
Well, three issues or three outcomes that I would drive. First is credibility with the community. There's a credibility issue with the board. I hear it every day on the streets. We've got to bridge that gap. I've learned very quickly in my appointment that we cannot make progress whichever direction we decide is best for the community without the community support and trust. So how do you do that? Well, you start with the little things. You let people talk about agenda items during meetings, which we've already changed. We put things on a discussion item before we vote on them in the following meeting. You don't rush things through. Second issue, we've got to balance the budget. We can't be operating in deficit mode day in and day out. Third, we've got to get the right leader for the community, which means hiring the best, highly qualified individual who is the best fit for this community. Those are the three results that I would drive home.
Thank you. Mr. Van Noorden.
Thank you.
I'll get it out.
First of all, you used a great educational term, outcomes, as those in the education business will know. Closing the credibility gap is also on my list. I think it's extremely important. As I announced that I was going to run and started talking with folks in the rural community, that's one of the things that came through loud and clear with everyone, almost everyone I talked to. We have a major issue there. And one of the things that I thought would be a good thing to do is when we have the parent-teacher conferences, maybe we should have some school board members sitting there so that when parents are seeing their teachers, they can also stop by and see us and visit about the schools. Second thing, I think we need all day, every day kindergarten in our school system. I think we may be the only school system in this area that does not have it. I agree with the budget issues as well. I think they're important, and also the superintendent issue is extremely important. But all-day kindergarten is critical. I have a granddaughter that's in the New Richland Harton School District that is going to all-day every day kindergarten.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Mr. Anderson, same question.
The couple outcomes I'd be looking for, student achievement. That's what we have to accomplish. That's the only reason we're in the schools, involved in the schools, is to increase student achievement. The second, financial, if there's such critical issues there, we need to quit cutting. We need to figure out ways that we're going to be able to balance our budget and not have to continue to cut, because cutting in the schools means we're cutting teachers, ultimately leading to cutting programs or increasing class sizes. And then the third, the credibility gap. I mean, we've heard it all over, I've heard it in the community, and echoing the comments already made. I mean, the credibility gap is something we need to really focus on. And then certainly a superintendent that's going to help us achieve all those goals.
Thank you. Mr. Billwall, we are going to start the next question with you. The next question. The school district is balancing its budget with a combination of cutting expense and spending reserves. What is your solution for the fiscal challenge facing the district?
Balancing our budget is a multi-pronged approach. First off, we have to make sure that the money we're spending is being spent in the right places, that we don't have any waste in it, that we're investing in our priorities. So we need to know what our priorities are. Obviously the students, but then there's other priorities such as the facilities. We need to make sure that we are maximizing our use of all of our facilities and try to avoid having to increase our budgets in those areas. Secondly, I think that we should have passed put on the ballot the operating levy. I don't think there's any doubt we're going to have to do an operating levy next year. I think that this community will support an operating levy if the only thing on the ballot is the operating levy and not hooked up with several other things which maybe aren't as popular with the citizens as making sure the students have good school system. I think that was one of the mistakes we made in previous years, that we tried to do too much. So I think that we're going to have a little
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Mr. K.J. Wall, same question.
Well, I'll go back to the credibility issue. First of all, you involve the community. All stakeholders in the community have to be a part of the solution when it comes to our budget issues. It's not just expenditures and revenues. At the end of the day, we're making cuts every year over the next 2 to 3 fiscal years, multi-million-dollar cuts, and at the same time, in almost equal amounts, spending down our reserves. So we're deficit spending in the midst of program cuts. So it's got to start with community involvement, making them meaningful participants in the process so we have buy-in and we've got credibility on the issue. Second, when it comes down to it, it is expenses and revenues. You just have to establish a criteria. We need to do it equitably across all groups, and we need to do it in a way that protects the classroom. What cuts can we make and what revenue solutions can we come up that are going to protect our classrooms and have the least impact on student-teacher ratios and learning?
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Mr. Van Noorden.
First of all, I think it's really important that somehow we step back and get what is our vision for this, for our community schools. You got to start there, and then as you cut, which we have to do, always keep that vision in mind. I think that's critically important. I also think we need to really be looking hard at, are we getting the most dollars for the tax dollars being spent? Are we spending our money wisely? I think that's another important issue. I also think we need to look at the community and resources in the community and look at some more sharing. For example, Riverland Community College is a place where we could share some of our high school facilities. Some of our high school kids might be able to go out there, but there are some things that we can do, I think, with Riverland Community College and the business community as we look at trying to educate our kids for the future.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson.
Several years ago, the board made a decision to spend down the reserves. So what we've been doing over the last few years was intentional. I wasn't part of the board at the time, but it was decided that made sense. We actually were penalized from the state for being a district that had a lot of reserves, so we purposely did that. But moving forward, we have to make sure we quit doing that. We can't continue to spend down. We have to match our reserves with our spending. One of our key issues is with a school district, about 75% of our revenue goes out in the form of personnel. So we have to be very careful on what we do on the personnel side, yet find ways to not be cutting teachers. We have to cut non-teaching staff to the extent that we can, yet still get all of our activities done. And certainly getting the community involved in making these decisions will be key moving forward to make sure everyone buys into what we're doing and understands what we're doing and why we're doing it.
Thank you. Mr. Sebring?
Will you clarify for me?
I'll do the best I can, sir.
Would you state the question one more time?
I would be happy to. The school district is balancing its budget with a combination of cutting expenses and spending reserves. What is your solution for this fiscal challenge?
And is the nature of your question, are you telling me that the spending or a levy, an increased levy is not a part of the question?
I did not say that, sir.
Okay. I would, okay, as a potential board member, I would open that question up and ask Owatonna to seriously also consider the possibility of a levy. And I understand that it's not going to be on this year's ballot, but I do believe that the past boards and administration have done a very good job. There has been a buffer, and we do have a little bit of room left with the buffer in terms of how much room we have left before before we start spending cash that we do not have. But I do believe that the number one priority would be that teaching student time. That is the priority, and that things that do not fall under that umbrella, things that are not directly related to teacher-student time, would be the things that would unfortunately need to be cut.
Thank you, sir. Mr. K.J. Wall, we will begin the next question with you. As the search for a new superintendent commences, what are the skills and characteristics you believe are crucial to the new hire's success? Mr. Wall.
And maybe you'll hear a theme start to develop in my responses, but first of all, again, I go back to community involvement and credibility. It's a process that has to involve all stakeholders in the community, teachers, administration, board, business owners, taxpayers. All stakeholders have to be involved in the process, they have to be invested in it, and they have to have buy-in in the process. Again, every major decision that we have to make as a board has to be influenced through the public. As for the skills, what is clear is we've got to have somebody that's going to be in the community, a visible figurehead in the community. I love what Pete's been doing in the interim role. He's in all the schools. He's talking to the stakeholders in the community. We have to have somebody that obviously has the skill set to do this job, but it is active and has great communication skills that he can communicate and be a consensus builder.
Thank you. Mr. Van Noorden.
I asked a friend when I was running for the board, what kinds of things do you like, or what is important as you run for the board? And he said, superintendents, there are two things you look for. There are two types. One type really deals with the financials well. The other type basically does well with community relations, that type of thing. Our superintendent of schools needs to, in this case, deal with the community and community involvement. I very much agree with building that credibility gap that's there, and our superintendent of schools is the best ambassador that we would have to do that. So I would be leaning toward, when we look at superintendents, one that does a really good job of working with and for the community and gets out into the community, mixes with the community.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson.
In searching for a superintendent, certainly I would look for somebody who really understands what the future direction of education is. I can see a lot of changes in education. The way we were taught, most of us back in the 50s and 60s and 70s, is going to be very different moving to the next generation, so I think he needs to be somebody who, he or she needs to be focusing on that. Certainly somebody that can be out front, in front of the community, involved in the community, engaged with the community, and at the same time engage with the schools and be visible in the schools and engage with the various, the superintendents, the teachers, the principals, all the school staff. They need to be, he's going to be a superhuman type person to do all these things, but I think we need that kind of an individual to lead us moving forward.
Thank you. Mr. Sebring.
I think you're going to hear me say a very similar, probably description of a superintendent. You know, as a community member, I can't honestly tell you that I know exactly what the behind-the-scenes dotting of I's and crossing the T's responsibilities of a superintendent. But clearly, I would definitively want this person to be at every choir concert, every wrestling meet, every football game, every basketball game, to be there, to be available, and to be approachable. Because I think in large part, we as a community base a lot of our decision on whether or not we're going to support various levies and bond referendums that come forward based upon how accessible and how